I'm crazy about growing things in the garden. I grew up with Granny and Pap growing a garden every year, making a garden. When I was young, I wasn't so crazy about it because I had to help in it. But once I was married and had a family of my own, it was something that I really enjoyed getting started in, and I still enjoy it today after all these years. I get excited just thinking about the garden. Part of it is just the rewarding part of starting a seed, like for a tomato, for example. We have a greenhouse, so we start the seed in the greenhouse and then take care of it and tend to it while it's in there, and then put it outside when the summer sun gets here, and then harvesting those beautiful red tomatoes and eating them fresh. There's nothing better than a fresh tomato straight from the garden. But then also harvesting enough to put up for the winter. So then on a cold winter day, dragging out a jar of tomatoes from the basement and making a pot of soup or whatever it is you're going to do with it. That's just such a rewarding thing, and makes you feel close to the earth, but it makes you feel self-sufficient and like you could take care of yourself. And the added benefit is those tomatoes straight from your garden are so much healthier for you than ones that you buy in the store. One of my favorite things to do this time of the year is sit by the wood stove and plan the coming garden. You think, well, you're still so many months away, but really I'm not when you think about when you start your things in the greenhouse. So that usually I do it in February. Sometimes things get in the way and it's even March before I get started. This year I'm really anxious to start earlier than ever before because I want to try some different things. That's the exciting part of gardening to me too. There's tried and true things that we grow every year that we would never have a garden without growing them. Then there's always things that entice you to try. And sometimes they work out, and then that becomes part of your tried and true ones that you'll grow every year. That happened to me last year. It was the first time I grew Malabar spinach. I will always grow Malabar spinach from now on. It did so well, and to have a fresh green all through the summer. Most greens, kind of peter out as the hot summer sun gets here, but having one that lasted literally, it frosted on the Malabar spinach once before and it kept going. It took 2 or 3 frosts to actually kill it. So that was just a plant that I loved, and it was beautiful, but it was just wonderful to have. So sometimes those new things I try end up something like that from now on I'll grow it. Other times, not so much, and I just try it that one time and we really never end up growing it again. One thing that can quickly happen if you're someone that likes to garden, and especially starting things from seeds, is that you end up with an abundance of seeds. Because I rarely do, and maybe it's because I'm hindered by my space. I don't have a huge farm. I just have, we only own an acre. So on that acre, we live on the north side of the mountain, so there's not that much of it that we can actually garden. It produces enough for our family for sure, but if I had a huge space, I'd probably try to even grow more. But in other words, I don't usually use an entire pack of seeds. One pack of seeds might last me 2 to 3 years. Well, what happens is then I buy more seeds. People give me seeds, which is wonderful, and I end up with more than enough, which is, again, a wonderful thing to have. But you quickly figure out you need a way to store those seeds, and I've got mine in baskets and bags and containers in different places. And sometimes when a few years back I got so many, and I thought, well, need to start actually checking the dates on them. So I found the ones that was the oldest. I still couldn't bear them to throw them away, or get rid of them. So I put those in the freezer. They sell those packs of seeds that's supposed to be like doomsday kind of seeds or Armageddon type seeds, so that you can put them in your freezer, and then if something bad ever happens, you'll have them, like those long term storage ones. So I thought, well, I could do the same thing. I'll just put these seeds in the freezer, and if I ever need them, they'll be there. So that's the wonderful thing about seeds. I've read accounts of people having seeds that were maybe 20 years old, and they found them maybe at a yard sale or in their parents' cupboard or something like that, and they grew them, and they still grew. That life was still in that seed, which is an amazing thing. Anyway, this year Katie got me this metal box because she thought that it would help with my seed storage, which it will help. What my plan is to put the seeds I'm going to use this year in here. It doesn't help with organizing them all. I need a better way to do that. If you have any ideas of how you organize your seeds, I'd love to know about it, so leave a comment. But one great thing was she didn't just give me the little box, she also filled it with seeds, so I had more seeds. So she got me these are peas that I've never grown before, so I'm definitely going to grow those this year. She got me some winter squash, the green striped cushaw. That's an interesting word, cushaw. So some people call them cushaws and some people call them crushaws here in Appalachia. So I'll be interested to know what you call them. But those get so big, and for our family, you only need to maybe grow a few to have enough to last all through the winter, especially if you put them up. But I'm glad she bought these, because this was one of the ones that I somehow let the seed get away from me. I grew them for several years. One of my blind pig readers, I believe it was William Dotson, sent me some of his seeds, and then I grew them for several years, but somehow I let the seed get away from me, so I'm really glad she got me that one. She knows we love this as our favorite tomato to grow, is Cherokee Purple. That's Matt's favorite tomato of all. So I've never grew this one, ain't Ruby's German Green, so I'll be interested in that one. This one is neat. It's a Nebraska Wedding tomato, never even heard of that one. And then she got some squash, some cucumber, dragon's egg, never heard of that one, so that'll be interesting. Some mustard greens. She knows we like mustard greens. She got me some red Malabar spinach because she knows how much I love that one. I was able to, I harvested seeds from my plants before the frost got them. And I've heard that a lot of times if you grow Malabar spinach, that will actually reseed itself and come back up in the same place. So I'll be looking for that this spring. Some spinach. Some melons. I love melons. I have bad luck with my melons. One thing is, because I live on the north side of the mountain, I think they don't get enough sunshine, that's for sure. My sunshine during the day is not long enough for them. And then it's like, even the ones I grow, when they get so big and they're just beautiful, and I know that I'm just going to pick them and enjoy them, something eats them. Probably a turtle, I would guess, but I'm not sure. But this year, I'm going to put cages. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to figure out how to put cages around them. So she bought some huckleberry seeds, which is interesting. So huckleberry is like a wild blueberry, and they grow wild here. There's a patch between my house and Granny's house that the girls used to stop at a certain time of the year in the fall, usually is when they're ripe, and munch on them late summer, early fall, on their way home from walking home from the school bus. So she bought those because of that. I don't know how they'll do, but I'm going to try to start them and grow them. Anyway, she bought some beets and some lettuce, some beans, and some cucumbers. So that was neat. She bought that. But even though I have that supply of seeds, I find myself ordering seeds every year just in case I run out of this, or just in case I have to share with Granny or my brother or someone. So two of the places I like to order from, probably the first place that I really like is So True Seed. For a long time, So True Seed sponsored my garden. They've not in the last several years, but I still really admire what they're doing and really admire their business. Everything that they do, I really admire, and I really like it because they're in my neck of the woods. Well, they're about 2 hours away from me, but still in western North Carolina. So a lot of their seeds, they do heirloom seeds, and a lot of them are ones they find that have been passed down through the generations in western North Carolina. So I really like that fact too. So I can't even really remember exactly what I ordered, but someone had left a comment and asked me what are the tried and true, like what seeds we plant every year that we couldn't not plant. So I thought that I'll point those out to you as I go over. This is not one that I would not plant, but that borage, we had this growing. It's like a medicinal herb, and it's really pretty blue flower, and I had a really good start of it, and something's happened to it, so I got that. I got chamomile. The girls like to grow chamomile. Them and Matt, they love to put it in their tea, so chamomile's a great one. This is one that I grow every year, so it's a beet, and this is Early Wonder. I like Early Wonder, and I like the Detroit Red. Those are beets that I grow every year. I love kale, pretty much any variety of kale. This is some Russian kale and some red Russian, but I like there's not any kale that I don't like, and I always grow kale. I usually grow it in the spring, maybe a little bit, but mostly I like to do it as a fall crop. So right now I have 3 beds of kale outside that we can eat on, and usually it'll overwinter here, so I'll end up pulling some of it out in the spring to make room for other stuff, but we'll eat on it all winter, so I really like kale. I always grow a lot of cucumbers because I like to make pickles, and we like to eat them fresh too, of course. But the Boston cucumber is my favorite one to grow. I also there's an Arkansas one. I like that one, but I grow Bostons every year. They're really tasty, and then they get the perfect size for someone that does want to make pickles. So that's a really good one. as far as beans, I didn't order any bean seed that we usually use because I saved my own seed. So we like to grow greasy backs. So greasy backs are a pole bean, and they grow. It's like almost like a white half runner. They have runners, so you have to have something to grow for them to grow on, and that's the ones that we grow every year. We just really like greasy backs. But Granny was talking to one of her friends, and she told her that this past year they grew rattlesnake beans, and that it was the best beans she'd ever tasted. So Granny wanted me to get her some. So I got 2 packs of rattlesnake beans for us to try, but I've never grown them before. Granny likes to grow. She likes white half runners. That's what I grew up with Granny and Pap growing, and what we eat mostly, and what Granny canned. But she also loves cornfield beans, so that's mostly what Granny grows these days. And I also like to grow, every year I like to grow candy roasters. So a candy roaster, I've got a video about it. I'll link to it either in the description or up above so that you can see it. So a candy roaster is a winter squash. The flesh of it's kind of like a pumpkin, but I think it's sweeter and tastes better than a pumpkin. So that's something that I grow every year in our garden too. That was from So True Seed. And I also got some from Baker Creek this year, which is where Katie had got some of the seeds that she got for me for Christmas. Let's see. Some more chamomile, just a different variety. This is one of the ones that I just wanted to try. I have no idea if it'll be any good or if it'll grow here, or it says it'll grow here, but how it'll actually do here. You know, it tells you one thing, but you always kind of have to test it out for yourself. But it's if I'm saying it right, and I may not be, it's Goji goji berry. So that's going to be an interesting one. It's a fruit, so we'll see. Let's see, what else? More kale. This was Ragged Jack kale. Sorrel. I wanted to see if I could get sorrel started, and then maybe it would just come back every year and I wouldn't have to worry about it. Some mountain mint. Miss Cindy wanted mint this year, and I swear I used to have mint, but everything we found outside was not mint. It was lemon balm or something else. These are the beets that I grow every year that I was talking about, the other beets, the Early Wonders and the Detroit Red. I really like those. So those were from Baker Creek. Some of the other plants that I grow every year. This is a watermelon. You see that I've saved the seeds on this one and wrote Tim's on it. So Tim is a farmer down the road, and he grows the best watermelons ever. So I attempt to grow his watermelons every year. Mine rarely turn out as good as his. He has the full sun all day that I don't have, which I think makes a difference. Let's see. I really like the smaller pumpkins. This is one small sugar pumpkin. I like this one a lot, but my favorite pumpkin probably is a Chambers Creek pumpkin, and again, that was seed that one of my friends, Don Cassidy, gave me, and I grow it every year and save the seeds from it. This was the other cucumber that I really like, is Arkansas Little Leaf. So that's one of the ones that I grow every year. There's another pumpkin that's Seminole Pumpkin. I really like that one, and that was one of the ones that stay small. Since I don't have a huge area, like I said, I wish I did. Another interesting bean that we grow a lot is Yount's bean. You can see I've saved some in this little pack. I've got more in another place. But this is a bean that's from the Junaluska area of Cherokee County, and one of Matt's friends shared it with us. In his family, they've been growing it for almost 200 years, I think. And they called it a Yount's bean. But then I got to talk to Brian, Matt's friend's name is Brian, his great uncle Alvin, one time, and I asked him about it, and he said because his grandparents grew it, and then his family grew it, and he was in his 90s when I talked to him, and he said they also called it a young prince, so that was another name for it. But it's a bush bean instead of a pole bean, and we really like it. It almost gets like a when you cook the bean, it's like a richness, like a broth. The broth has a richness to it, even though you don't use any meat or anything. It's just a really interesting bean that's been passed down in that area all those years. Here's some more of my candy roaster seeds that I've saved. This is I didn't grow these last year, but this is some that I still have. This is some beans from Kenneth Roper, who lives in Topton, up near Nantahala. And he grew these. He said they were a white half runner that was passed down in his family or in his general area there. I don't know about his family. Anyway, but they are really a prolific bean, and they you definitely have to have something for them to grow on. They grow so huge. We also usually grow, and I try different varieties, but we love to grow peppers. And mostly sweet peppers, bell peppers and banana peppers. We don't like the heat that much. The deer hunter does some, though. We usually grow some jalapenos, but that's about as hot as we get on those. Other tomatoes that we really like, Mountain Princess, we usually grow those. That's like a kind of a smaller red, like uniform red, and they're really good for canning. One thing that I'm really excited about growing this coming summer is a type of tomato that they grew at John C. Campbell Folk School this past summer, which is a Juliet tomato. So it's a little plum, almost bigger than a tomato, so not the smallest tomato, but about that big, I guess. And I just could not believe how they just hung. I've never seen tomatoes grow like that. And the best flavor, and especially good for drying. And I dried a lot of tomatoes last year, so I'm excited, tickled to grow those. I can't really wait for that. Other tomatoes, we really like the black cherry, which is a little bitty tomato. We grow those every year, and we really like those. And we grow squash and zucchini every year, like the Black Beauty zucchini and the either crookneck or straight neck or some of both of the squash. We really like those, and we grow those every year. Of course, there's radishes and lettuces that we grow every year. Onions, we grow onions, mostly because we don't have that big of an area. We grow onions to eat as green onions, fresh green onions, but then we end up leaving some of them that don't get eaten. We harvest those and dry them and just use them until they run out in the winter. But we're by no means growing enough to last us all winter. We also grow garlic, so in the same thing, we harvest it and it lasts us through most of the winter, if not all of it. And usually we have enough to kind of replant as we go, so those are some interesting things. We used to plant potatoes, so that's one thing I've not mentioned. But before Pat passed away, we had our garden here at home, and he had a garden at home. And then we had a big garden, Pap's big garden. And in that big garden is basically where we grew the corn and the potatoes and the beans. Well, since Pat passed away, we don't use that garden anymore, and there's nowhere up here at my house to grow corn, and there's really, if I grow potatoes, I couldn't really grow enough, it seems like, to benefit. I need a bigger yard, is what I'm saying. I guess what I'm saying. I wish I had a bigger place, but I don't. Anyway, so that's why we don't grow potatoes or corn. Although this year I did buy some like miniature corn. I'm going to try that and just see, just even if we just had enough to eat a mess or two out of it, just see how it turns out. See how that goes. Let's see, what else do we grow? We have grapevines, and we have blueberry bushes, and we have raspberries and blackberries. So those are things, apple trees, so those are things that we grow. Not every year, we don't have to replant, but kind of grow on their own, and we certainly enjoy them. Another thing that we grow every year is okra. My favorite variety is Jing Orange. That's one of the red varieties, and it just seems like it stays tender longer. So if you forget or you miss a pod or two and they get long, it seems like it stays tender longer than other varieties. We do grow some of the green varieties too, and we eat a lot of okra, so we like that. Another thing we grow every year is cantaloupes or melons. My favorite is the Minnesota Midget is the name of it, and So True Seed has it, Baker Creek or wherever else might have it too. But it's one that's actually, it's why I started growing it, was like I thought, well, if they can grow it in Minnesota, I should be able to grow it on the north side of the mountain in North Carolina, you know. So it does very well for us, and it's a really tasty one. They don't get huge either. They stay on the smaller side. And we grow some little melons too, like sugar babies and some different little varieties of watermelons. And I think last year was our best year for growing the melons and the cantaloupes, because for the first time we used cattle panels to grow things on, so those melons could grow up, and that way they were off the ground to keep them away from the turtles and the other things, or rabbits and things that decide they're going to take a bite out of them right before I'm about to harvest them. So that seemed to help a lot. For the past several years, I've really just focused on, not just even several years, probably the last 10 years, 15 years, I've just focused on only growing vegetables. I have a lot of flowers around from when I first moved here that Granny shared with me and my aunts shared with me and different people. Some I plant, some I bought or planted, but most of mine were given to me by somebody. Anyway, and I really enjoy them and I really love them. but I've not really focused on them. And last year was the first year, and I don't know why, I just thought, well, I want to grow flowers again. So I tried to sprinkle some flowers in between some of the vegetables, like I put sunflowers at the end of the rows and things like that. And I really want to try to do that this year. I want to try to I always grow zinnias and marigolds every year. Those are easy to save the seeds from. But this year I actually took the time to find some different varieties. Nasturtiums, we always grow nasturtiums. And there's several herbs that we always grow. Some of those are perennials that just come back every year. Basil's another thing I didn't mention that we grow every year. I really love the taste of basil, and cilantro. I grow cilantro every year. So I'm sure I've left out some stuff. But I hope that you'll leave a comment and tell me what are the things that you grow every year, and if this is the time of the year, if you're like me and you're on the cold days of winter, if you're sitting by the stove, the wood stove, or sitting by a sunny window or whatever and looking out and dreaming about your garden that's coming up. I hope you'll tell me what you like to grow and the things that you've tried that worked or maybe didn't work, like me. It's always exciting to try new things, and then sometimes, like with the Malabar spinach, you hit on something that was well worth your time and energy, because that's something I'll grow from now on. I could never imagine a garden without it now. And then sometimes it doesn't work out like that, but you just never know. That's the exciting thing about gardening, besides providing food for your family's table. And for me, really just carrying on that Appalachian tradition of providing for your family, of putting in the garden. There's so many memories and folklore and tradition from putting in the garden, from starting, like I said, I started our tomatoes and our peppers and a few other things in the greenhouse. When Pap was a boy, he told me that his mother started her tomatoes. She would burn like heat up the soil, so she would make a burned area. And then she would plant the seeds in it and cover it with a sheet. And that was the type of greenhouse, the only way she had to do it. That was it. So that's how she did it. And he said sometimes she would try to do it like where the sun shone under the edge of a porch or something, so it was kind of protected that way. Now, so just there's so many memories and things. Of course, I'm not going to do it that way. I have a greenhouse, so that's modern. I've moved into the modern world. But yet when I plant those tomato seeds, I think of Mamaw, and I think of her, burning her tomato bed and getting excited about what the fresh food that she was going to produce for her family that summer. So all the way through, from planting it to tending it, all the way to, I think of the stuff Pap taught me about how to take care of the plants, about how to prune the okra, about how to do this, about how to do that, all the way up to then when you're harvesting and you use tried and true canning recipes that's been passed down through your family, whether you're making pickles or you just can green beans the way your mother did, or whatever. There's just such a tradition around all of it. But then the bounty of the food that you get to eat, it's just a wondrous thing. So thanks for dropping by. I hope you'll leave a comment. Hope you'll subscribe if you hadn't, but mostly I just hope you'll drop back by often as I celebrate Appalachia.